Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, my guest today is Gary Renard. He is the author, inspirational speaker, traveler, lecturer. You'll have to tell me more of The Disappearance of the Universe, which looks like a tale that I'm very anxious to hear. And I've been hearing about Gary for some time, so I'm really honored to have him here with me. Thank you for coming over the bridge.
Well, Penelope, I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you.
You know, you've been doing this show for so long. It's just
my hair
amazing.
was red when I started.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I think it's really great.
It's just a privilege, and you know, all forms of spiritual healing show up, and it's wonderful today that the missions are so individual and that people are stepping into something unique for themselves that doesn't look like anything else, which I find is what Awaken the Dream kind of looks like lately. It's just like, what's next? So here you are, and you are next, and you have this tale to tell, which, if you would mind helping my audience hear about how the disappearance of the universe happened.
Well, I'd been on a spiritual path for about 14 years.
Okay.
At the time when this whole adventure that is described in the books began. My life seems to have run in 14-year cycles.
Ah, Saturn.
The first 14 years, I was pretty normal.
What is that?
You know, I was happy.
You look like you're doing the right thing.
I was doing the same thing as everybody else. I was a good baseball player. I was good in school. I was smart. People liked me.
Okay.
But when I was around 14, I started to become depressed.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't understand why. And it got progressively worse. And by the time I was 28 or so, I was practically dead.
Oh.
I didn't want to do anything.
Oh.
I had no ambition.
Yeah.
I didn't know why I wanted to sleep 12, 14 hours a night.
That's a sign.
And fortunately for me, this friend of mine, I think I had one friend left at the time, and he practically dragged me to do this thing called the EST training.
Oh my gosh, EST.
Yes. And
excellent.
What EST did for me was it gave me my first thought system. Now, I can't overemphasize how important it is to have a thought system.
Yeah.
Because the mind is like an animal. It'll run wild if you let it.
Okay.
And you have to train it. You have to give it a discipline.
Well said.
And I didn't know why I had become depressed, and I assumed that I was having all these bad thoughts that I was having because I was depressed. It's actually the other way around. I wasn't having these bad thoughts because I was depressed. I had become depressed because I had been having these thoughts my whole life.
Yeah.
It's always the thoughts that come first.
Yeah.
And the experience follows. So that's why I became depressed. I did EST, got my first thought system, which was a very good one.
Yeah.
Not as great as another one that I'm going to describe to you, but it was a good one.
Okay.
And what it did was it gave me a way to consistently interpret everything that I saw in my life, and it changed everything, and within a year or two it snapped me out of my depression.
Yeah.
And I went on a spiritual path which opened up that next 14-year period in my life where I learned a great deal about spirituality.
That's a pretty head-slapping. EST is pretty head-slapping.
Yeah.
You get called on, you know, you can't get away with anything.
No. No, it was kind of like getting hit over the head with a sledgehammer. But it was exactly what I needed at the time. And it was very helpful for a lot of people. It kind of like, you know, ended after a few years, but I know at least 1 million people did it. And during that next 14 years, I would study different things like Buddhism. I got into meditation. I felt like I got very good at meditation. I felt like I could get to the point where there were no interfering thoughts of any kind.
That's a feat.
I could achieve like absolute stillness. And there would be total rest of the mind, and I think that it really helped prepare me for what I was about to get into in the next 14-year phase. And to make a long story short, I was in Maine by then.
All right.
And I was meditating in my living room. I remember this was...
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, this was Christmas week of '92.
You're alone.
Yeah, about a little over 21 years ago. And I opened my eyes from my meditation, and there were two people. They looked like people. I even got to feel them.
They had
touch them.
They had bodies.
Yeah, they were like real people.
Warm.
Yeah, and you know, there was this beautiful, wonderful, amazing, drop-dead, gorgeous, exquisite fantastic looking woman was sitting there, and some guy.
Some guy. You didn't notice him as much.
Not as much, no. But she started speaking. Now, of course, this begs the question immediately, why didn't I go running out of the room screaming when two people apparently appeared from out of nowhere? Because I knew the doors were locked, so they couldn't
hear a doorbell.
No, they couldn't have snuck in. So they apparently materialized from out of nowhere. I didn't see them appear the first time because my eyes were closed, but I did see them disappear.
You did?
And yeah, and
cool.
It was like instantaneous.
Cool.
It was like you had a remote control on a TV, wow. You flicked the switch and
what a privilege.
They disappeared instantly. They said that they would be back in a week or so. I didn't know if I totally believed them. I don't know if I had just been meditating a little bit too much and I was hallucinating or something, but even though that was a very short visit, the first one, they did say some interesting things, kind of piqued my curiosity. And there was nothing threatening about them. They looked so peaceful, yeah. And that reassured me.
Yeah, you seem comfortable in your own personality with them. From what I mean, they were teasing you about being a wise guy and all kinds of things, and you were, being yourself and comfortable, and they were a little delightfully, ribbing you a little.
Well, I was a little bit nervous, and when I get nervous, the way that I defend myself is I'm a smartass.
Ah,
yeah. Gotcha. So I will come up with these smartass comments. But they gave it right back to me.
That's what I know.
They spoke my language.
Yeah.
And they didn't come off as holier than thou or religious type figures. They spoke English.
Okay.
And I liked that. So a week later, I'm sitting there, and they just appear. And I did see them appear the second time. That turned out to be the second longest visit of all, and the longest in that first phase, as I now call it, because they had major phases where they would appear to me over a long period of time, then stop maybe for 2 or 3 years.
That long?
Then come back. This has been going on now for 21 years.
Oh, wow.
But the first book that we're going to talk about, The Disappearance of the Universe, is something that chronicles that first 10 years that they appeared to me in Maine. They appeared to me 17 times over a period of 9 years, and then there was another year where they guided me when it came to finishing the book and getting it ready. They told me during the process that I was going to write a book. And I was surprised at that. I didn't think of myself as being a writer. I think I said to them, a book? I have a hard time writing a check, and you want me to write a book? My big dream at that time would have been, as a musician, to write a hit song.
Sure.
But a song only lasts a few minutes.
Yeah.
A book, that seemed too big to me. And they would counsel me. They would say, look, don't look at it as being a big project. I mean, think of a chapter as like you're writing an article.
Oh.
So anybody can write an article, right? You don't have to.
They had you pegged, for sure.
Yeah. So you write an article, it becomes a chapter. You write 15 chapters, you got a book. So you don't have to approach it as this huge project. You can break it down into doable steps and do it that way. And this all took so long that I procrastinated when it came to actually writing the book. I think most of it was done the last 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
You were afraid of it?
No, I wasn't afraid of it. I was just lazy.
Such an honest man.
And I had a computer because I had been trading the financial markets in Maine, and I had a computer for that reason. But I didn't like computers. I hated computers because something would always go wrong with them. I felt like throwing it out the window. And then I started trying to write with a computer program, and anything that could go wrong did go wrong. So it was a challenge. And the good thing about it was that they were teaching me how to forgive. They were teaching me how to practice a certain kind of forgiveness, and the spiritual teaching that they were using and quoting quite a bit from when they spoke to me was the modern day spiritual classic, which is called A Course in Miracles. Yep. And it turned out that that's what they were teaching me. In fact, they told me at the end of the second visit that I was going to start studying this thing called A Course in Miracles. And my attitude was, nobody's going to tell me what to do. But of course, there I was 3 days later at this New Age bookstore in Auburn, Maine, buying my first copy of A Course in Miracles. And I picked it up and I started to read it. And it was like, what the hell is this?
Oh.
I mean, it made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. It might as well have been written in a foreign language.
Yeah.
You pick it up, the first miracle principle says there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They're all the same. I don't know how anybody could pick that up, read that for the first time, and have any idea what that means.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a reason for that. It's because the Course, as we call it, everyone refers to A Course in Miracles as simply the Course. The Course is a holographic presentation. You know, it doesn't give you things in a linear manner. It doesn't spell things out for you one step at a time.
Yeah.
It starts out with its most complicated ideas. And hopefully, through repetition, over and over again, you'll start to pick it up.
Yes.
And you'll get what it means.
Yeah, it's genius.
Yeah, it is genius, but that picking it up part doesn't happen for most people.
Right.
And the Course ends up sitting on their bookshelf for 20 years.
You bet.
And what my teachers, whose names are Arten and Pursah, Pursah was the woman.
Yep.
She appeared to be in her 30s, maybe part Indian, part English, beautiful, exquisite, amazing-looking woman.
You kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
You were
And Arten, he was
what about Arten?
in his 30s. Well, he was a very good-looking guy also.
Okay.
Kind of Greek, you know, tall, dark, handsome. I hate him. And and they were very articulate, but you know, sometimes if I said a joke, they would come back with a joke. And what they did for me was they gave me a linear presentation of A Course in Miracles. They spelled it out one step at a time.
All right.
So that I could get it.
Okay.
And I did start to get it. And I noticed that after 7, 8, 9 visits from them, I could go back, pick up A Course in Miracles, read it, and it was starting to make sense to me.
Yeah.
And it turned out that later on it would do the same thing for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
But that's when I started to get excited about it, when I realized that the way that they were explaining it to me actually did clarify it, and I could go back and read it and say, oh yeah, that is what it says.
They gave you the tools then to reapproach it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, that enabled me at first to understand the Course, which is part of the battle, but it's not the most important part, because I've learned that it's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know.
Yeah.
Do you apply it
Yeah.
to your everyday life? Do you apply what you know and what you've learned to the everyday situations and events that you see even on television, you know, the relationships that you find yourself in? Do you take what you know and actually apply it every day to those things? And if you do, then you will progress light years in your spiritual path.
Yeah.
But if you don't really apply it, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think what holds a lot of people back is that they believe that enlightenment is achieved by the amount of spiritual information that you put in your head.
Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah, so they'll read a different book every month.
Right.
My teacher, Pursah, described it as the spiritual buffet line.
Oh, okay.
You know,
That's
it's
cute.
like you're going from one thing to another to another.
Yeah.
I know people who, I'll mention A Course in Miracles, and they say, oh yeah, I did that. And what they mean is that they read a book about it.
Yeah, there's a ton of books about it.
Yeah, and that's not doing A Course in Miracles. That's an introduction to A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes the Disappearance of the Universe unique is that it does give people such an understanding of the Course that it kind of lights a fire under them. Because obviously, if you can understand something, then you can apply it.
Yeah.
And it kind of like opens the door for people. One of the analogies that I've used is that A Course in Miracles is like a can, and the Disappearance of the Universe is kind of like a can opener.
Ah.
You know, it's kind of hard to get into a can if you don't have a can opener.
Yeah.
But if you do, then it's doable.
Yeah. Do you think they're trying to get you to realize that the discipline is so important? I mean, that you have to, you know, step up to the plate. You have to want it. You have to want to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that is so important.
Yeah.
At one point, A Course in Miracles talks about the phrase, I want the peace of God.
Yeah.
And it says that to say these words is nothing, but to mean these words is everything.
Yeah.
And the way that you demonstrate that you really mean it is with your practice, with your discipline.
Yeah.
I liken the art of forgiveness as being like learning how to play the piano.
Yeah.
You know, you start off.
Very good.
You're not very good at it.
Yeah.
you suck.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're determined enough, then you will practice every day. Yeah. And forgiveness in spirituality is no different. If you want to be good at it, you have to practice.
I'm so glad you said
day.
that. That's so important.
And some people don't think in terms like that.
Yeah.
But if you told somebody who wanted to be a great piano player, you could say, well, you know, if you want to do that, you're going to have to practice every day. They wouldn't have any problem with that idea.
Yeah.
But if you tell spiritual students that, then not all of them, but some of them will be like, well, you know, I just want to read this book and, you know what I know and have a clever conversation about spirituality. But I don't want to practice. Well, you have to practice. Yeah. And A Course in Miracles is a discipline. Mm-hmm. It takes work. Yep. That's why one of the big sections of the course is called a workbook, because it takes work.
It does.
And I think that what keeps people going after a while is that if you do it, if you apply it, then your experience will start to change.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm not here to deny that people's experience is that they're a body. That is our experience. Yeah. I'm just here to say that it's a false experience.
Yeah.
That it's not true.
Yeah.
That we are not bodies, not really.
No.
That what we really are is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
What we really are is actually bigger than the universe of time and space.
Yeah.
It's something that the Course would refer to as spirit with a capital S. Mm-hmm. But the Course says that spirit is not a partial attribute. It's something that is whole. The Holy Spirit, which is the real teacher in the Course, even though the voice of Jesus is speaking in the first person, is obviously the voice of the Course. Jesus himself says in the Course that he wasn't the ultimate leader that people think he was, that he was the ultimate follower, because eventually he just listened to one voice. Yeah. And that was the voice of the Holy Spirit, which is the same voice that we all have access to.
Yes.
And that we can all learn from.
Yeah.
You know, and the Holy Spirit is teaching a certain kind of forgiveness. And if you apply it, your experience will start to gradually change from the false experience of being a body, which is a partial experience based on separation, which you could also call the ego, because the ego is the thought of separation. Yeah. And you'll notice that everything in this world is separate. Yeah. You know, this table has a border and a limit to it. It has a beginning and an ending. Yeah. Bodies have a limit to them. But what we really are is unlimited. Yeah. When I said spirit is not a partial attribute, spirit is not just part of it, it's all of it. Yeah. You know, so you have to make a differentiation between the way that most people think about spirit, because most people will think, well, I die, and there's this thing that goes on after me. And this thing that goes on after me, well, it looks suspiciously like the body that I just left. That is a separation idea.
Yes,
even that is an idea of individuality and personal existence. And what the Course is saying is that no, what you really are is not personal, it's not separate from anything else, it's not just part of it, it's all of it. It's something that is exactly the same as its creator, exactly the same as God. Not a partial thing, but what the Course would describe the awareness of perfect oneness. Yeah. And the knowledge that there is nothing else. Nothing else outside this oneness, nothing else within. So this is something that is all of it. It's immortal. Yeah. It's invulnerable. Yeah. It's something that can't be touched by anything in this world. Yeah. You know, something that can't be threatened by anything.
That is right.
In this world. So when the Course starts off in its brilliant introduction by saying nothing real can be threatened. Yeah. That's what it's talking about. Yeah. It's talking about your reality. Yeah. Then it says nothing unreal exists. And this is where it gets difficult for people. Because when it says nothing unreal exists, it's talking about anything else. Yeah. Anything that is not that perfect oneness with God. And this is why A Course in Miracles is a purely non-dualistic philosophy. Because it's saying that of the two seeming worlds, the world of God and the world of man, only the world of God is true.
That's right. That's the only thing that's real.
Nothing else is true. Yeah. Nothing else is real. And some people have a hard time with that because they're saying, well, of course this is real. Look at it, it's hard. You know? Yeah. And what makes it seem so hard is fear. Yeah. The way the Course puts it is fear binds the world. Yeah. Forgiveness sets it free. Yeah.
The Course helps you to find an internal teacher. It gives you companionship. Yeah. And you can have a love affair with that, and before you know it, you're experiencing wholeness.
Yeah,
you've got company, you've got support.
You can change your experience of your life. You know, people have no idea how good they could feel if they could get a hold of the power of their mind and change it, because they don't realize that they're setting themselves up right now. There's a great line in the Course. It kind of like is a major law of the mind. It says, as you see him, you will see yourself. Mm-hmm. And because of the way that the mind works, and just quickly we'll say this, the conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. It's the unconscious mind, the part of the mind that you can't see, that runs you, and that runs the entire world. Yeah. And if you get down deep enough into that mind, there's really just one mind. Yeah. Because there's really just one of us. Yeah. Because there's just one ego appearing as many. Yeah. What the Hindus would call the world of multiplicity. Mm-hmm. So you look out there, you see almost 8 billion people. It's a lie, it's a trick. It's a trick of the ego. Yeah. There's something we don't know about the ego. The ego likes this idea of separation.
Loves it.
It wants to keep it going. It feels special. It feels important to be an individual and have a universe of time and space to play in. And what the Holy Spirit is saying is, well, no, instead of thinking with the ego, you can think with me. And the Holy Spirit thinks in terms of wholeness and oneness. Yeah. Now, if you get down deep enough into the unconscious mind, your unconscious mind knows everything. It knows even the truth, which is buried there waiting to be remembered. Yeah. So your unconscious mind knows that there's really just one of us. Yeah. Now, if you think about the implications of that, then what it means can be a little bit startling, because it means that your whole life, whatever you thought about another person, was really just going to you.
Yeah, yeah, it's all about you.
And it will determine how you feel about yourself. Yeah, yeah. Even what you think you are. So most people are going through their lives thinking garbage. That politician that they don't like comes on the TV screen, and they'll say, "Oh, what a jerk." Yeah. And they don't realize that they just called themselves a jerk because your unconscious mind will interpret anything that you think about another person to really be about you. Yeah. It will interpret it as a message from you to you about you.
It will straighten you out.
Yes, and if you go through life thinking the way that most people think, you will be miserable. Yes. And you will feel separate and isolated. Yeah. And depressed like I was a long time ago.
Yeah, 5 minutes. How can we wind up this? First of all, your website. Where can folks get The Disappearance of the Universe?
Yeah, the website is www.GaryRenard.com. Okay, so I thought of the name for the website myself.
And you're so clever.
Yeah, it's GaryRenard.com, and has all kinds of information. Yep. Including the book. And the books describe this certain kind of forgiveness that I'm talking about, but for our purposes, I'd like to emphasize that this is a kind of forgiveness that is coming from a place of cause and not effect. Yeah. I think that people have to realize that the world is not being done to them. It's being done by them. Yeah. Because
I like that.
Deep down in that unconscious mind, just like in a movie theater, there's a projector. Mm-hmm. And the projector is hidden, and you're not supposed to think about that. Your attention has been diverted to the screen, just like in a movie theater. Yeah. Yeah. And after a while, we forget that it's not real, and we start to make it real, and we give it our belief. Yeah. That's why it has power over us, because we have given it the power of our belief. Yeah. And if there's anybody in this world that has the power to hurt you, or to make you feel bad, or even to affect you, it's because you've given him that power. Yeah. And what the Course does with its kind of forgiveness is that it takes that power back and puts the belief where it belongs, not in the world, but in God, which is why the Course says, be vigilant only for God and His kingdom. Yeah. And when you start seeing with the Holy Spirit, you can start thinking of people as not being that separate body, but think of them as being all of it. Yeah. Kind of like overlook the body. Yeah.
Shift is an expression in the Course. Shift what you're looking at.
Shift in perception.
Yes.
It's like instead of perceiving with the ego's eyes, now you're looking with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And the Course says everywhere the Holy Spirit looks, He sees Himself. Yeah. The Holy Spirit overlooks the body and thinks of them as being this perfect spirit that is totally innocent and exactly the same as God. That is how Jesus got in touch with His divinity. was by seeing it in others, and that's why he says in the Course, as you see him, you will see yourself. Yeah. If you go through life thinking that you're forgiving people, not because they've really done something, which just makes it real in your mind. If you can forgive people not because they've done something, but because they haven't really done anything, because you're the one who made them up in the first place, then your unconscious mind will get the message that you are innocent.
Yeah.
Because whatever you're putting out there is really just going to you.
Yeah.
And if you think in terms of spiritual sight and people being this perfect spirit, and not just part of it, but all of it, and if you think that way long enough and often enough, then that is how you will experience yourself.
Yeah, yeah. 2 minutes to go, Gary. Gary, what a wonderful message. It's so uncompromising. There's no nonsense. It's just the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of like at first you'll think, well, you know, that can't be true.
Yeah.
You know, and then after a year or so, you say, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Then after a couple of years, you say, yeah, that makes sense. Then after 5 years, you're saying, oh, I always knew that.
Yeah. Talk about the comfort, too, of the voice or the spirit working with you. And you can have quite a sense of humor when you have little miracles happening where all of a sudden you have a wake up and a shift, and you're given that gift of seeing correctly, seeing the truth.
Well, it's exciting because as you practice this kind of forgiveness, you are undoing the false you, the ego. In fact, the Course says salvation is undoing. Yeah. You undo the false you, and it's a very good approach, because if you could completely do that, if you could completely undo the false you, then eventually the real you would be all that's left.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything about the real you.
Yeah, you've got
the real
it all.
You is already perfect.
Yeah.
It's already exactly the same as its source. All you have to do is undo the ego through forgiveness, and eventually, in your experience, it will switch more and more to the real you, which is spirit.
Yeah. Well, in our last minute, we must say discipline is important, intention is important. If you want it, you can work at it and experience it, but it's up to you when you're ready. And I think, my thinking is everyone will have to be ready sooner than later, because it's the best game out there. Yeah, it's the best deal in town.
Yeah, sooner or later, everybody realizes that there's got to be a better way than living with the ego.
Yeah.
Because it's too painful.
Yeah.
But I think everybody will make that decision in their own time, when they're ready for it.
When they're ready.
But you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
You know, you can do it now.
We can go now. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Gary Renard. I'm going to check out. And thank you, my friends, for joining us on Awaken the Dream. We will talk to Gary again soon.